Hey, what's going on, guys? So, in this episode of the Ecom Performance Marketing Show, I have a guest expert in Google Analytics and all things data, Chris Mercer, known as Mercer in the online marketing circles. And he goes over three powerful, actionable, step by step strategies that you can apply to your e commerce business to increase your conversions. So, I'm really excited for this episode. Let's dive in. Are you ready to transform your normal e-commerce business into one that experiences exponential growth year after year using online advertising? If so, this show is for you. Me and my guests will show you how you too can grow your e-commerce business to 7 or even 8 figures so you can go on more luxurious vacations, spoil yourself and your family, say yes to more opportunities, and become financially free so you never have to worry about money again. Welcome to the E-commerce Performance Marketing Show. Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome back to the E-com Performance Marketing Show. I've got a legend in the digital marketing space, Chris Mercer here. So let me tell you a little bit about Chris, and you can call him Mercer. We all call him Mercer. He is the co-founder of measurementmarketing.io, a sought-after measurement marketing agency. And also, him and his team have been helping marketers, marketing teams, and agencies know, trust, and grow their numbers, which is a critical part of e-commerce. They do it by planning what's important to measure in your marketing, then how to actually measure it using tools like Google Tag Manager and Google Analytics, creating dashboards that are actually useful and pulling actionable insights into what's being measured to begin forecasting and optimizing future results. A little bit about Mercer too. He spends countless hours reading, practicing, adjusting, and innovating to improve his skill set. He has a knack for teaching and is known for his ability to simplify even the most complex ideas for his audience. And he has been at various events, spoken on stages at Traffic and Conversion Summit, Social Media Marketing World, Content Jam, Travel Con, Digital Elite Camp, Baby Bathwater Institute, and many, many others. Super excited to have him here on the show. Chris, welcome to the show.
Man, happy to be here. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, man. I'd love for you just to go right into your background, your story, how you got into what you do today.
Good question. So we started the whole digital adventure. I created a WordPress site that trained people how to build WordPress sites. It was like my first little membership site. And that very quickly led into people saying, well, this is a lot of work. Can you just build my WordPress site? So then we started like learning outsourcing and hiring developers and started building WordPress sites. But I wanted a way to differentiate because that's what everybody was doing. So we started moving into conversion rate optimization and started to say, well, we'll build your site and we will help you to optimize your site. Well, in order to optimize, you must first, of course, measure. And that's where we went into Google Analytics and we started really doing Google Analytics setups. So we knew what the numbers were so we could optimize them. And when we were doing this, we would show clients and say, well, hey, here's where your goals are. And here's how you can figure out your leads. And this is what we're trying to, and just for us, what we thought everybody knew about Google Analytics. But very quickly, we realized the clients even stopped talking about split tests and ideas. They were like, wait, go back to here. How can I tell what my email was doing? How can I tell what Facebook was doing? Okay, so show me this again in Google Analytics. And then we would start having people refer us people, not for their websites, not for optimization. It was about, hey, you can such and such showed me, how you were doing this thing in their Google Analytics. Can you show us how to do that or how you guys did that? And that's where we realized, okay, pivot time. This is where we go into what became measurementmarketing.io. So we could just teach people how to do this because they're incredibly powerful tools. Just nobody really knew how to use them because they can be a little complicated and people didn't really make great users manuals. So we did.
Yeah, I know. You guys are killing it when it comes to that. You guys are the best. That's awesome, man. And when was that? When did you first have your WordPress business?
That started right around 2011, like 2010, 2011 area. Yep. And then we pivoted, I want to say it was around 2013. When we actually moved into measurementmarketing.io. So it was a couple of years of doing that other stuff and led us into this.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, what's been your biggest e-com success to date that you could share with the audience?
The biggest e-com success, boy, that's a general question. So I think in terms of the biggest shift I have seen in our own e-commerce, I'll speak from that perspective, is understanding that we could measure for the conversation that a user was having on our site. And I'm going to step back just a little bit and explain that. So one of the big insights that I had, my background before any of the digital stuff was sales management. I was a sales manager for many, many years in many, many industries because I'm so systems oriented and I manage a pipeline very effectively. I know how to measure that and how to get salespeople to, get more appointments and close more deals and all that other stuff. So it occurred to me one day that The website really is just a series of salespeople. Each page has a specific purpose, just like every salesperson has a specific purpose. And so one page's job might be to make somebody aware of your cool content, like maybe a blog post does. Another page's job is to get an email address, like maybe a lead form. Another page's job is to collect payment details, like maybe a cart. And if I looked at them like individual salespeople, and they all had their unique positions, their unique results that we were trying to get, that I could measure to see, is the audience, is the marketplace, are my users that are coming to those individual pages on my site, are they in fact having the actual conversation I think they're having with those salespeople? Because if my cart page is virtually punching somebody in the face every time they come over because it's really hard to use and they can't figure it out, I might want to have a conversation with that salesperson, right? I'm going to look at the cart page and say, listen, there's a really high abandonment rate here. What's going on? And, you know, the cart page could essentially explain to me like, well, I'm just asking for the credit card number. I'm like, well, did you tell them the product they're buying? No, I didn't think that was important. I'm like, well, that's important. So let's adjust the cart page so it has the product they're buying on it. And that is my biggest shift, because it has the most ripples in as a lesson. Because when I learned that, I started applying that and changing our reports to measure for that sort of stuff. And so now I look at an offer page and I don't just care about how many people see it and what the conversion rate is of the offer. I look at how many people showed interest in that particular offer. How many people actually investigated moving forward, right? Actually thought about it, because you can kind of measure for that as a behavior. How many people actually did click to the next step? And then I do the same thing for the next step. And so understanding that there is a story there that can be measured, that if you understood what that story was, you would change what your pages look like and then improve your performance. That was the biggest lesson I've ever learned.
Gotcha. Well, that highlights something super important, that it's the inputs that lead to the output, meaning that, you know, you want to look at stuff like average time on page, bounce rates, you know,
all the
how people are
engagement
behaving
signals
on the page. Yeah, exactly. Just all the,
if I was an e-commerce store, did they click on the image links versus products where they didn't? Right. If they're looking at reviews, does that help us, or does it actually hurt us maybe? Right. So it's like that sort of stuff you can absolutely measure for and understand.
Totally. Yeah. What's your tool of choice to measure qualitative data like that?
So when it comes to the tools, I kind of use, I definitely stick with Google stuff, because they are incredibly powerful. And Google's done a very good job of branching out the tools that they now offer. It used to be just analytics back in the day, right? And analytics would like collect some basic information like page views, and that was pretty much it. And then it would store that information, and then it would create these reports in Google Analytics. And those are, of course, the ones that most of us look at and go like, I have no idea what this means. And then you leave, right? And you don't come back for a couple of years. And so now what's happened is they have Tag Manager. And so we use Google Tag Manager to collect behaviors. That's what it's there to do. It's designed to be able to do things like, I could say, hey, Tag Manager, when somebody comes to my page, if they click on at least 3 of the images in my product detail page, I want you to give them a lead score of 7, right? And cookie the machine with that. I can do things like that with Tag Manager. Now, it doesn't store any of that information. It doesn't actually build reports with that, but it does do what I need it to do for those, to witness the behaviors, to be aware of the different behaviors that are happening. Then I send it on to Google Analytics. And that's the first sort of connection. I have Tag Manager, then Google Analytics that stores that information. Then what I do is I have a Data Studio dashboard. So Google Data Studio, again, another free tool. All of these are free tools. So Data Studio, then where I would create a dashboard that shows me the story. And that doesn't, I don't like seeing rows of data. I'm kind of a numbers guy, but I don't want to spend my time analyzing reports. I think that's a waste of time. I need to be a marketer, right? I need to go change my site and improve results. So when I come into my dashboards, I want to see it kind of like my car dashboard. Like when you look at your speedometer, you know immediately, do I hit the brake or do I hit the gas? You don't have to think about it or analyze it. You just take the action because you know the information. That's how a marketer's dashboard is built for us. We build them in that way. So you can look at the path or the customer journey that's happening and see the numbers, see which one's off, and then go back and make adjustments if you need to. So that's kind of how we use those 3 tools. So it's Tag Manager, Google Analytics, and Data Studio.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, you know, for the e-commerce business owner that's watching or listening to this, or even a marketer working at an e-commerce company, what do you recommend in regards to like educational resources for someone to learn how to do this stuff as fast as possible and also as effectively as possible?
That's a good question, because there's a lot of places out there. Like, it's like you can learn hundreds of different places, thousands of probably at this point, of how to set a goal in Google Analytics, right? So you can learn the tactical stuff pretty easily. There's lots of that stuff out there. But when the real question is not so much how to set up a goal, it's what should goal even be, right? How do I think about goals? What do I do with it once I measure it? And I have this number coming back. What does it actually mean? What actions will I take based upon it? So it's a lot of the strategy stuff. I'll definitely give some, self-serving stuff that we do. So you can go to our
Please.
YouTube channel.
Yeah.
So measuremarketing.io/YouTube will take you there. We've got a lot of free training on that. We have strategy sessions and tactical training as well, but we have strategy sessions. I just think the tactical training is like, there's 1,000 places you can find that. Even though we have hopefully a little more fun style of teaching it, but it's the strategy that's important. Measure School is another great channel to look at on YouTube for anybody that's trying to find out that stuff. And I'd say as a platform, YouTube is a good place to look for that, because this type of learning requires seeing somebody do something on the screen. Definitely. And you modeling that, right? So you see how they do in analytics, then you check your analytics and try to get the same result. So that's why I would say YouTube is a really good platform for it. Measure School for sure. MeasureMarketing.io's channel, and then Google Analytics. So Google Analytics has their own channel. The drawback on Google Analytics channel, it is very, very general because it kind of has to be. They're talking to like everybody on the planet, so they have to keep their messaging kind of general. Channels like MeasureMarketing.io and Measure School talk a little bit more to the marketers, and so they can get a little bit more specific on some of those things. But those are the three I'd recommend.
Nice. Yeah, I love it. I love it. So this might be a hard question because I'm putting you on the spot here, but what are up to 3 like strategies or tactics that you recommend that e-commerce business owners apply to their business, whether it's GA related or not, so this way they can see some results coming from those specific actions that they've taken based on your recommendations?
All right, good question. So 3 things. First, I'll kind of do some phrases here. So the first one would be results and how. You have to know your results, of course. And you need to know how many sales you're making. You need to know average cart. That's important. What is more important is you have to know how you got those results. How many product detail page views? Of those, how many people added to cart? Of those, how many people started the checkout? Of those, how many people finished the checkout? To get you the result that you got. Because when you understand that, you have a map that you can then start to use to forecast the future, right? So, and that's the second thing I think that people should be aware of. At the very least, be aware of the fact if you know your results and how, which everybody should, you can just measure for that, right? Using analytics or 1,000 other different ways. You have to know your results, but you have to know how you're getting the results. When you know how you're getting the results, you can start to forecast and get used to marketing forward. So it's that idea of not just looking in your data all the time. One of the best, normal questions we get is, we're just trying to figure out how people are using our site. You've probably even said that yourself. I know I did when I first started out. Everybody says that. We're trying to figure out how people are using our site. And the problem with that question is it's so general. So what does that mean? You go to analytics and just see everything, and then you're mysteriously going to see some pattern. Nope, that's not what's going to happen. You're going to get really overwhelmed. Things are going to seemingly contradict one another, and then you're going to give up. That's what's going to happen. And it's probably already happened. That's what a lot of people do when they answer that question. Definitely. So instead of saying, well, how are people using our site? You start asking, how are they supposed to use our site? How is this supposed to be working? And that's where that marketing forward concept, that idea of forecasting, because if you know what your results are and you know how you're getting the results, so you know your results and how, you can then start to market forward. That second thing of saying, well, here's what should happen next week. We should have at least 1,000 page views from Facebook. Of those 1,000 page views, 3% of them are going to add to cart. Of those people who add to cart, half of them are going to start checkout. 3/4 of those will finish checkout for an average cart volume of $75, and that's going to equal the $4 or whatever we're making, right? And you have this, you start planning out your results and how, but for the future, because when you do that, you can then start to optimize results, because you can measure against what your plan was, essentially, right? What that forecast was. You can measure against using actual results, and you'll see where you're hitting the market, where you're not, and that makes the optimization 1,000 times easier, because it'll be really obvious what's not working and what actions you need to take in order to fix it. So those would, I'd say the first 2 would be results and how, and then marketing forward, making sure that you're thinking in terms of how is this supposed to work, because that'll force you to measure it too when you're doing that. So those 2 things will help. The third thing would be understanding story. So that's the most important part. And that is going to be becoming increasingly important. So understanding not just the results and how in terms of, page views to carts to, checkouts and average order volume and everything else, but the idea that there's a customer journey that's happening. There's a pipeline of somebody who's like in our example, we measure for offsite awareness first. For example, when you send over and say, hey, the podcast is ready, I will send traffic to it. I'm going to send traffic to your site. We're going to pay good money to send people nowhere near our site at all. The reason we're doing that is because we want the ad platforms to be able to show us people who are now offsite aware, right? So they're kind of aware of our brand, but just because through your brand, right? Well, now they're in a different audience. When they engage with the messaging, they're in a different audience. So now we're trying to get them on-site aware, which would be moving them into our brand, our pages at measuremarketing.io, maybe checking out a blog post or an infographic or some training that we have that's free. Then we will measure for potential interest in extending the relationship with the brand. So in our case, it'd be creating a free toolbox membership. And then you would just create, become a lead at that point, right? And all the messaging changes to getting that to happen. And then ultimately purchasing something like the Measured Marketing Academy for those that want to pay for the training. But there's that pipeline that's happening. And so when you have that pipeline story, and that's what we're trying to do when we do our marketing, we're trying to figure out, is Facebook better at offsite brand aware? Is a certain ad group in Facebook maybe better at getting leads? Is maybe Google ads the thing that's really good about getting people to be on-site aware? And you can measure and it's a lot easier to figure out traffic attribution because we're not measuring for the purchase in and of itself all the time, which is a mistake that people make. You're always trying to go for the purchase, but there's 1,000 sales that happen. The purchase is just one of them. It's an important one. Don't get me wrong. It's great when the credit card switches hands, but you have all these other sales that have to be made before that sale can happen. And so when you see all those sales, you actually get the customer journey, you understand the story, and you can start seeing how specific traffic sources cause specific results and how to start using them together to move your customers through the pipeline. So just to recap, I'd say it's going to be results and how, for sure. Starting to marketing forward and starting to forecast what your results are going to be. Be wrong up front. It's okay. Just be wrong and you'll start measuring and you'll start to be right.
Thanks for a good thing.
Yes, exactly right. And then the third thing is understanding the story and measuring for the customer pipeline.
Love that. Yeah, that's huge. Yeah, a good book that I'm about to dive into that I've heard for years is that Story Brand book that everybody talks about.
Yes.
Yeah, I borrowed it from a good friend of mine, and I'm about to dive into it and go through it. So this way we can apply some of the teachings from that book to the various brands that I'm involved with right now. So I love that you highlighted that because it's so important in your marketing to have like a good vision of what your story should be, and then also to see it from an analytical perspective as well.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Because the idea is that when you know how things have worked, you can start to predict out the near future, right? And say, well, here's how things should continue to work. And you can start to predict and forecast. And that's an important tip as a marketer, because it's nice to know that you hit a certain result. Like it's good. But in my team, they know if they hit a result, but they don't know how they did it, and they just have to, well, I guess it was just a good week. Like that's not a great answer for us, right? It's like, no, we need to know what impact we had.
Yes.
And we have to make sure we hit our plan. And we can measure for it. And that's the beauty of it. There's no guessing. There's no gut work. There's no hippo, right? The highest paid person's opinion. None of that comes into play because the numbers are just obvious and they become a map. They become kind of like a treasure map, right? That you can follow to find buried treasure.
Yeah, that's great, man. Well, we're at the end of the interview today, but I appreciate you being on. This has been great. This is a bonus round to end the interview. So this is how this works. You basically have to answer each question with only one word.
Okay. And I've not been prepped for this at all.
No, I know. It's a total surprise.
That's right. It's the best type to do this. It's good.
I know. One word. That's why we do it. What caused your biggest e-com success to date?
Story.
Yeah. What advice do you have for other e-com business owners?
Try.
How would you describe yourself?
Growing.
Okay. And what do you see in your future?
Results.
Awesome, man. Was that challenging at all for you? I mean, you didn't like break at all. You didn't crack. You were just completely like stonewalled the entire time. And
it was unusual because I'm like, how do I say this? I'm like, okay, I'll just use you know what? This is the one word. So hopefully it makes sense. That's the other thing. It's like, they're like, what the hell? What would be interesting is seeing all those words chained together. Maybe there's a pattern there.
Yeah, there might be. Yep, for sure. Well, how can the audience, learn more from you, follow you, or even hire you or purchase one of your products?
Sure. Yeah. So our website's measurementmarketing.io. So if you're interested more in this stuff, for sure visit that. I mentioned the YouTube channel earlier. So if you want to take a look at that, it's measurementmarketing.io/YouTube. We'll take you there. And then if you go to measurementmarketing.io/e-commerce, we actually have an entire free membership that you can have access to kind of get your feet wet on some of this stuff. It comes with a lot of tools to help you figure out how to better track your tracking, how to actually set up that story of, measuring for awareness and engagement and that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of free tools that are back there for you. Again, measurementmarketing.io/e-commerce will take you there.
Nice. That sounds like an incredible free resource. But guys, this has been an incredible episode. Chris is one of the best out there when it comes to this topic, Google Analytics tracking, growing a business using data. So you definitely need to share this episode with your friends and colleagues that are in the e-commerce space. This way they can learn more about this integral piece of scaling a business. And also these awesome resources, measurementmarketing.io/YouTube and measurementmarketing.io/e-commerce. So definitely make sure that you share this episode. This way other people out there can really benefit from this episode and these awesome resources that Chris gives away for free. Chris, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for being on the episode today. And, I really appreciate it, man. This has been a great episode.
No, happy to have you, or that you had me, I should say. Thank you again for letting me provide value.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, take it easy. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Thank you for tuning into the e-commerce performance marketing show. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, like, and comment with a timestamp of your favorite part and share it with a friend. Until our next episode, here's to you and the success of your e-commerce business.